God, we just want you to be glorified. Have your way. Take your place.
He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden, it is light.
This is who I am. Watch me walk this out.
No matter what your circumstance is, He is your answer. Peter said something. He said, women are the weaker vessel. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you for just a few minutes. I was a little offended by that when I read it the first time. I don't know about you, but I've been through some things in my life, and weak I am not. Do you hear me? It is because of Him I stand strong. I'm like, whoo, don't you tell me I'm weak. So I had to do a little research because I am not weak. We aren't, are we? Peter says we are. I'm like, God, you're going to have to help me with this because I can't look at these women and tell them they're weak. You sent me to empower these women. But He said, you tell them, Peter said, read this. The woman is the weaker vessel. The word weaker in the Greek is asthenes. Don't you forget that, asthenes. And let me tell you what it means. You are physically weaker, and everybody in the room is okay with that except Jessica Reese. It only means we are physically weaker. I cannot do what my husband can do physically. It does not mean I am weak in mind, weak in spirit. It simply means my biceps are smaller than pastors. That's all it means. Do you hear me? So I get this out, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, what are you saying? He said, well, look at that Newt's cup. It's strong. It's sturdy. But it's still just an iced tea glass. Are you following me? It's still just a glass. It was created to do the same thing this is. You following me? Huh. Why would He show me all of that? Glad you asked. Asthenes, lacking in physical strength. Most theologians use the term fragile. Fragile. Well, I wasn't sure I liked that either. Fragile. But compared to that, this is very fragile, isn't it? Okay. All right. Well, let me tell you. In my home, the fragile things are the most expensive. They're the most valuable things in my home. And if He wants to say, daughter, you are fragile. Okay. I'm okay with that. Well, let me tell you, this is often taught out of context, and I want to clear something up. So if anybody has ever taught you that verse means this, I'm going to need you to download and erase right here. Let me tell you what that verse does not mean. It does not mean that you are to be treated like fine china. We are telling our daughters, it doesn't mean that, sister. It does not mean we are to be treated as fine china, because let me tell you something about fine china. I have heard this taught a million times. Fine china, you're not ready for this. It's rarely usable. It's primarily used for decorative purposes. Huh, really? And here's the last one. It's rarely useful. What? Whoo! I'm telling you right now, don't be treating me like fine china, because I got a story. Okay? Don't be confused. Don't you dare be confused with what I'm saying here. So I want to talk to you about a few women this morning. You better buckle up. It's not what I got to say, it's what He's got to say. All right? There was a woman. She was a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, a property owner. She was a devoted mother, wife. Her children blessed her and her husband praised her. And in addition to managing her household, she fed the poor. And she ran multiple businesses. That is no weak woman. Okay? Did I mention she runs multiple businesses? Watch this. She invests her earnings and opens a new business. Not only does she run businesses, she's successful. She's making a profit. So the scripture tells us she's looking out and she sees some land. Let me get mine. I'll take that. And she plants a vineyard. She's successful. She's planning. Are you following me? That would be your Proverbs 31 woman. And then there was another woman. She was called a woman of noble character. Let me tell you what that means. Noble character. It means she's capable. That doesn't sound like a weak woman to me. That would be Ruth. And then there was the trailblazer. Let me tell you about the trailblazer. She was the first woman to birth a child without drugs. She was the first one to nurse a child at her breast. And nobody told her what to do. She didn't have a mother. She didn't have a sister. She didn't have a midwife. She just had to do. Are you hearing me? Sometimes you just got to do. Well, that is who she is. Thank you for going first, Eve. I know we got a few things we want to say to her later on, but today I'm just going to say thank you for going first. A lot of theologians believe that Cain and Abel were twins, so I'm going to tarry here for 2 seconds. I need you to get a visual. Anybody in here deliver twins with no drugs? Did you have drugs? Did you nurse those babies? Oh, did you have any help taking care of those babies? Are y'all following me? Yeah. You want to call her weak to her face? I don't believe I would. I don't believe I would. And I want to tell you what else she did. She was the first to mess everything up. But let me tell you what she didn't do. You can mess your life up, but that doesn't mean you have to duck your head and run. Let me tell you what she did. Ooh, I can just see her. Oh, let me. She pulled those shoulders back and she said, I'm going to be the mother to all. I might have messed this thing up, but I'm about to pick it up. That's what she did. That's what she did. I don't believe I would call her rarely useful, would you? Most of us have some level, I'm going to say healthy, some level of pride when we talk about our professions. I know for me, I'll meet somebody and I'm like, oh, they love me. And they're so nice and we're having a great old time. And then they ask me what I do. Well, sometimes that shifts. They don't know what to do with that. And so they love me. And then when I tell them I'm a pastor, they're like, okay. They're like, oh, that's just a little more than I can bear right now because you're all up in my theology and you are not supposed to do that. And then I just pull my shoulders back. I go, you're going to need to take that up with God. But can you imagine? What do you do for a living? And she looks me square in the eyes and she says, I'm a prostitute. What? She says, I'm a prostitute. She's that girl that few people are going to invite her to the church picnic. She's that girl that couldn't say no to her boss. She's that girl that understands being in a job where she is not valued. Anybody there today? She gets you. But honestly, she's a lot like you and I. Don't shout me down. She is. She had dreams. She had hopes. She had desires. And let me tell you, she was stuck and could not get out. Whew, but let me tell you what she did. She said, oh, I'm not going to go on like this. I heard about this God. I heard about this man. I heard about this God. and I'm about to line myself up. Ooh, I'm about to line myself up. And when that door budges open, I'm falling through it. That's how close I'm getting to the promise. Do you hear what I'm saying? You can be waiting for a ride in the middle of a 100-acre field. Or you can be waiting for your ride on the edge of that curb. You're still waiting for the same ride. Do you hear what I'm saying? But Rahab said, oh, I'm about to get right up in this. And you wait till that door cracks open. I'm about to get my second chance. It's what it says. Sometimes, you can want and want and want. We want change. We want a second chance. We want a new start. But let me tell you what want looks like. You better get yourself in holy alignment, or you're not going to get it. Do you hear what I'm saying? You are not going to get it. What does holy alignment look like? God, I'm getting myself ready. Woo, I'm going to buy that dress. I'm going to get those shoes. And when they call me for that interview, I'm going to walk through that door. You can want to change, but what are you doing to align yourself to that change? That's what I'm talking about. That's our sister Rahab. It requires you move. Sometimes you got to move. I don't see her as a woman of insignificance, do you? She was desperate and she knew where to go for help. Jesus was in his last year of ministry. And on this particular Sabbath day, he was teaching in someone else's synagogue, which according to the times meant that it was primarily men. Dr. Luke tells us that this is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 13. And we are told that there was a woman. And for 18 years, 18 years she was bound. For 18 years she was bound by a spirit. If there were women in a synagogue, let me tell you where they stood. They stood on the back wall. They stood on the back wall. The men sat in the center and the leader stood in the front. But there was a woman and Jesus said, come, come, come. For 18 years, this is what and he said, come. And she's standing here. Now, here's what we don't know. We don't know if there were 5 or 10 or 20 women in the back. But here's what I want to tell you about this woman. Nothing was functioning in her physical body. When you are bent like this, you can't even reach up and get a piece of bread off the table. For 18 years, this is what she looked like. And Jesus saw her leaning against that back wall. He said, come forward. Come. Nothing is functioning in this body. She can't bathe herself. She can't dress herself. She can't feed her. Are y'all following me? Completely desperate for someone to help her. And Jesus said, come forward. Come forward. She walks towards the Messiah. Now, what I haven't told you, she walks toward the Messiah. Nothing's working in her body. Only one thing's working. The Lord showed me, oh yeah, something was working. She was hearing my voice. When everything's shutting down in your life, here's what we don't know. Here's what we don't know. We don't know if there were 5 or 10 or 15 women on that back wall. Did they have to say, ma'am, the rabbi is talking to you? I don't believe anybody told her a thing. Because John 10 says, oh, you hear my voice. Woo! You hear my voice. And when he said, come, let me tell you something. She made her way. He gets in front of her and he said, whew, we got all kinds of tears going on up here. Here here. Not supposed to do that. Phew, Jesus. Anybody desperate? He basically said, you have been freed. He reaches over and he lays his hand on her, and suddenly, her hand, it was a suddenly. And all those men that looked down their noses as her behind was in the air, are you following me? And they're going, what are you, your kind, doing in this house? Jesus said, oh, I'm about to mess this place up. Come. I know you, and you know, come on. Now, here's what I want to tell you about this woman. Number one, she ain't weak. She's not weak. Because let me tell you how I know that. After 18 years looking like that, would you have showed up at the synagogue? And how would you have gotten there? Are you following? How would you have gotten there? We're not told, did she live across the street? Did she live 3 miles, or did she live 17 miles from the synagogue? And how did she get there? How did she get there? I'm going to tell you one thing. She did not know what to do. She did the only thing that she knew to do. And guess what it was? She came to worship. She couldn't lift her hands like we do. She said, you know what? I might not can lift my hands, but I'm going to show up and be in his presence. That's what she did. That's what she did. You see, I know a lot about that disease. That disease today would be called ankylosing spondylitis. And it is a fusion of the spine. It is a crippling disease. And on October the 26th, 2000, I was healed of that disease. I was going to demonstrate that portion of the teaching myself, and my husband said, honey, please don't. Please don't. It's still very close to his heart. And he's like, who could we just get? You follow me? That story's real for me. But let me tell you, I serve a God that says, oh, I see you. She might be the weaker vessel. That's all I'm going to say about that. And then there was another woman, the last one I'm going to tell you about. And this woman was sick, and she was really tired. Anybody just sick and tired? Anybody sick? She was sick of being tired and tired of being sick. Well, let me tell you something about this sister. You call her weak if you want to, but I'm not calling her weak. I call her bold. Because let me tell you what she did. She heard about a man. She had been hemorrhaging for 12 years. You know her. You know her. She had been hemorrhaging for 12 years. She was broke, gave everything she had. She was desperate. She was tired, worn out, weary. And if you, ladies, men, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. If you are hemorrhaging that long, okay, a week, 2 weeks, I'm done. 12 years. She's anemic. She's weary, worn out. And something came up in her. She said, I am done. I'm done. I'm about to get mine. Okay, the woman he called from the back row, let me show you something about her. I just got to say this. He said, come on, come here. This one, she had to go get hers. She's like, oh, I'm about to elbow my way through this crowd, and I'm about to get mine. I'm done. I've lost my family. I can't take care of my children. But theologians believe that if she had a husband, he's gone. Because it's been 12 years, ladies. It's been 12 years. She's unclean. So she's trying to get help. So she's walking through the city. She's like, she's given everything she's got. She's like, somebody's got to help me. Somebody's got to help me. So the people see her and they start screaming, unclean, unclean. Yeah. So can you imagine the isolation that she felt? Broken. She's like, I am done. I see resolve in this woman that just fires me up. She's like, I'm done. 12 years, enough. I'm about to get mine. She heard about a man. He was doing all these crazy things, casting out demons. You know what I'm talking about. Healing the sick, calming the storm, telling stories. She's like, whoo, I'm about to break all of these rules, and I'm about to go get mine. So she covers herself up. Sometimes we do that, don't we, ladies? We disguise ourselves, and we act like everything's okay, and everything's not okay. It's not okay. So she disguises herself, and she ain't okay. She disguises herself. She's like, oh, when I see an edge, I'm about to get my elbows in, and I'm going in for the dive. Because you see, she had to touch the hem of the garment. That was the most anointed portion. The rabbis the oil was poured over their heads, and it is believed that all the oil would drip down into the very, very bottoms around the talit. And she said, oh, if I could just get my hand on that little fringe, I'm done. I know I'm going to be done. Oh, I'm about to get it in there. So she went to get hers. Sometimes you got to go get yours. Sometimes he may not just come over here and hint, honey, you need healing. No, sometimes you got to get your elbows in there and you got to fight. If the word says it, then I'm getting it. That's where we are. Ladies, that's where we are today. If the word says it, then you better go get it. And there's nobody to look at but yourself. If you don't get up and align yourself, right? Am I on toes or are we still good? We're good. She broke all the rules. She touched him. The blood dried up. The flow stopped. And he said, he knew. He said, who touched me? I could just see him. I love him so. I could just see him. Oh, who touched me? And the disciples are cracking up because they're like, you're kidding, right? He's like, oh, I want to know who touched me. And she's terrified. You got to get this. She's terrified because okay, here's the first thing. She was unclean and she had contaminated all those people. And so she's like, I've broken the rules and I'm in big trouble now. And she's like, so through great terror, through great fear, she confessed. Let me tell you what he said. Daughter, when your kids are in trouble, do you say, now, daughter, you stole all my jewelry? No, you do not. But let me tell you what he was doing. He was making relationship. I see you. That's what he was doing. Daughter, he says, you're mine. I see you. I know what you've been through, and I knew you were going to be here today. They didn't, but I did. So, friends, we're talking about the weaker vessel. I want to close with this little nugget. I want to tell you that your gender does not disqualify you. Your marital status does not define you. And your past does not dictate your future. Amen? All these women I talked to you about today, in our house, we say, they are winning. Yes. They're winning. Do you hear me? They're winning. When everything didn't look like they were going to win, they're like, oh, well, let me get my elbows in that. I'm getting mine. They were not hiding. Eve could have hid. She could have said, I'm done. Because let me tell you something. Last nugget, I promise. Last nugget. Here we go. Watch this. That was the first prearranged marriage. What do you think happened after the fall? Do you think when Adam sat there cracking his knuckles and belching after dinner that he was still cute? No, he was not. But she's looking at him going, we got to multiply. Great. We don't even know if she still loved him. We're not told that. Because see, after the fall, this is just going away piece. After the fall, everything changed and she could see who he really was. It was no cakewalk for that sister. Don't ever count her out. She might have failed, but let me tell you, she's looking face to face with somebody going, I don't even think I like you. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I'm telling you, when God's in it, you'll find a way. Amen? Amen.